Penultimate round of the season for RaceKraft V8 Vets Championship. It's season 23, it's round 9. It's the water 200. Yes, it's been falling out of the sky here at Interlagos. With plenty of great racing ahead of us, we're going to bring all of it to you live on SimSpeed TV. Myself, David Haynes, with Brock Cadday and Daniel Yeaman. Brocky, as a Victorian, I'm sure you're used to putting on your gumboots.
Hello everyone, it's great to be back here for the penultimate round of the V8 Veterans Championship, and yes, I am used to putting on the old gumboots and having it rain outside, and in fact over the last week or so we have been drenched, so I'm no stranger. Interlagos will present an interesting challenge in the wet though, with the many changes of direction corners and needing to have the grip right where you want it to try and get a pass done. So it's going to be very interesting. Unfortunately, the supercars, the best they can do is a set of wet tyres and not gumboots out there, but I'm sure they're going to give it a crack tonight to keep it on the grey stuff and not out in the grass.
So we're not only between the lakes, but we might be the lake, at least for a moment. This is the racetrack. Incredibly long but curved. Pit straight there in towards turn 1, which is going to be a long braking zone today. Turn 3 could be a challenge in slippery conditions. Turn 4, a great place to overtake. And then it's up and down and over the hills, and switching back on itself can lead to some very interesting racing through the middle sector, and also can lead to some very interesting Portuguese pronunciation when we try to say things like Junção or Laranjinha or even Bico de Pato. I think we can nail down. 4.3 kilometers makes it a pretty short lap though. You do get a lot of laps for your time or your kilometers around here.
You do, and speaking of the correct pronunciation, I'm probably going to butcher this. I was doing some research before the race on Interlagos, a track that's been around for many years now and very well known in World Endurance Championship and Formula 1, was actually named after Jose Carlos Pace, who won there in 1975 for Brabham. So a lot of history with this track here, and we were just, you called it the Water 200, and I think it's important to note that while the water has stopped falling, the air temperature is very low and the track is still very wet out there, speaking of those long braking distances. So the guys have been out there doing a lot of practice before we started broadcasting tonight. I think they're in for a challenging one tonight.
Absolutely. Could be very, very interesting how it all works out. Still have a VHS recording of Channel 9's coverage of the 2003 Brazilian Grand Prix from here, which was also very, very, very wet. This is the championship standings. Counting in the drop rounds, Jordan Ross is on top, ahead of Ken Latta and Darren Lobb. And then Wayne Walker, Michael Taljancic, Dean Logsdale, John Latham making a bit of progress. Scott Mackay back 1 spot. Stephen Banks goes up 2 and Mark Poynton drops back 2, but it's so close through all of those. And as you look at counting the drop weeks, you can't drop the final round of the championship. So it's all to play for as we get to that point as well. Logan Barnett with a great results a week ago jumps a couple spots, and Justin McLean not so great with a not taking the start of last race.
Yeah, look, I think there's a lot to gain here, as you said, and being this complex, not raining but wet race, this is where you get to see a lot of guys who love the wet conditions and can really drive to them, but we do have a really nice battle for second through third in the championship there as we flick through to the race itself now. And 47 lap race here at Interlagos with just a smidge over 200 kilometers ahead of us. As per usual, must complete 75% of the race, or 36 laps to be classified in official results. Your starting fuel, a bit lower than last week, is 50 litres. Refill capacity of the car is 70%, or 93.1 litres. Typically, fuel burn is 3.2 to 3.5 litres per lap. That might be a little bit different with the wet track out there today. Total fuel to add it is 100 to 115 litres. Now we look, as per usual, 2 compulsory pit stops. As we mentioned earlier, the track is drying for the rest of the session after some rain at the circuit in practice. Compulsory pit stop window opens at the end of lap 2, and that critical lap number for the second stop is anywhere between lap 18 to 21 to make it home on a full tank of fuel. Excuse me.
And so it is a wet track. As you can see, it has been raining. And we'll see how quickly it dries. It's always a question of, sometimes a track can evolve very, very quickly. Sometimes the water just hangs around, pools in various places. That's need to polarize sunnies if you're looking that way, but certainly looking very, very wet at the moment. The driver's lines represents all of that as well. Getting towards the end of qualifying here, Ken Latta on top from Jordan Ross in Logsdale in third. We look, that's not the normal racing line there, and so everyone does have to be very, very adaptable in these conditions.
Absolutely, and we see it if there's that gripped-in line, that our usual racing line will often have a bit of rubber on it, particularly because iRacing servers tend to be set with a bit of rubber already on the track ready to go. So these guys are being quite smart and trying to find where that grip is, keeping in mind they've got this last bit of qualifying and a 5-minute warm-up to decide how are they going to tackle the start of this race. So this is one of their last hit-outs before they get out there, and it's going to be really interesting to see how they're handling it. But right now, I was watching in practice, not too many spinners and guys battling and trying to figure out how they can get past. So everyone is in that mindset of, we're not going to sit behind each other, we're going to try and make something of this 200 kilometres here at Interlagos.
Yeah, so the rain's behind us, but the weather remains cold. It remains partly overcast, but not too much wind going on.
Sounds like we might be stuck with this water for a while based off that weather forecast. And again, that sounds exactly like Melbourne.
No, because it's not windy.
You know what? That's fair. That's a fair comment. I was going to compare it to a Sandown or two I've been to where it's all muddy and rainy, but the wind definitely plays a role at that event every year.
Let's have a look at the Zoom wall. Who's joining us for tonight's show? A look at a bunch of our drivers, and maybe one or two more will join in as we go. So Luke Allman, Dean Logsdale. It's a fresh angle of Jonathan Gallen. And then Stacey Boyd, Christian Smart, Chad Lewis potentially there, Ken Latta, Craig Sharp, David Kirby, Michael Stewart, and Dan Hall. Maybe we'll get another look at him later. Maybe he's
it's a great looking image, but no race sim. And unfortunately, I did see earlier the Dino will not be making an appearance tonight. He is out of tonight's racing, unfortunately. So we'll just have to guess the approximate heartbeat of these gentlemen on the Zoom wall tonight, and not go off of the Dino as we head throughout the evening.
Yeah, I'm going to guess it's down a little bit for Ken Latta, because I think he's got a jumper on. We haven't seen him with a jumper before, but must be getting a bit cold for old Ken Latta. Not cold for David Kirby or Stacey Boyd. It's guns out.
Well, it all depends on what type of race you are. Do you want to keep that warmth up there? Oh, you're right. That looks like a thick jumper for Ken Latta as well. He's ready to go and keep the guns warm throughout this race. But yeah, look, all depends on what sort of sim racer you are. Some people like being nice and warm and cozy, and others want to get the guns out and really show them off. And we've got a few out here tonight making sure the cameras are pointed just perfectly that we can show them off. And a late addition to the Zoom wall is Travis Hunt. It wouldn't have been a Zoom wall on the V8 Vets broadcast without him, so ready to rock and roll for tonight's race.
Yeah, absent the other week, I thought. But Travis Hunt, he's getting ready and he's getting set. And he's wearing the same shirt I reckon he always wears. He probably bought 20 of them in a bulk pack.
Yep, look, I mean, you got to have your sim racing shirts. I tell you what, I've got ones I like racing in, particularly when I'm doing my endurance ones. So if you just buy a 20-pack and have them piled up next to the sim, you never have to wonder, right?
I'm 1 or 2 years away from going, oh, that looks like a nice shirt. I'll have 5 of them.
I'm about there, I reckon. And it's a sad reality, but I think I'm there.
Yeah, same deal for socks and the lot. You work out what works and then you stick with it. And so there's a bunch of our drivers, and you can see they're in their warm up right now. And Ken Latta definitely trying to stay warmed up, and that's the way it goes. So driver of the day from last round. Let's recap on that one.
I believe we mentioned him earlier, or David, sorry, you did, but Logan Barnett had a barnstormer of a drive to what I believe was his first podium in the season at Daytona last week, and it really was an impressive effort by him to get up there. He was looking very racy at the end, so he is our Chubby Buns Burgers driver of the day for round 8 at Daytona, and it'll be curious to see what he can do this week. I believe he's qualified in 5th, so while he's a bit down in the championship, he doesn't care. The championship contenders are fighting for the top 5. He just wants to get some wins out there tonight. So be curious to see how he goes in these wet conditions, but well done for last week. The biggest question is, who's going to be our round 9 driver of the day? Chubby Buns Burgers driver of the day, sorry.
Yeah, every chance that this throws up a bit of a surprise strategically from RaceKraft-wise, etc. So Logan Barnett, driver of the day, and has continue some of that form on to what was a relatively unpredictable qualifying here at Interlagos. Oh, and we are going to the grid. Here we go with Wayne Walker and Ken Latta. So it's Walker on pole, and in a wet session, these are margins we're not used to seeing. 2.5 tenths from first to second on that front row of the grid. And then Jordan Ross is almost 4 tenths off pole there, with Dean Logsdale 0.57 away from pole. It's really extended the margins, the challenge that's been provided by the wet session. And then Logan Barnett, we said he starts out at 5th. There he is with Christopher Burridge in 6th. Troy Stonestreet's on the row behind in 7th, with David Kirby in 8th. And normally we see 1 second cover 1st to sort of 25th, but it's 1st to 6th today with Troy Stonestreet and David Kirby on that row. And then Justin McLean in 9th with Luke Allman in 10th. So we've got a couple of our Zoom wall drivers inside of the top 10.
That's it, and a bit of a mixed-up field here, as you mentioned, those gaps. So we've got Michael Stewart in 11th, another one of our Zoom wallers, and Travis Hunt in 12th as well. Moving to Dan Hall in 13th, another Zoom waller. Wow, they're all trying to fight for the top half of the field. Darren Lobb in 14th, one of our sort of top 5 championship contenders, has not really picked it up there, so that'll be interesting today. 15th is Scott Mackay, and 16th, Stephen Kennedy. Mike Taliantich looked like he had a bit of pace there in 17th. Last week he looked like he had a bit of pace, bit of work to do here today. 18th for Chris Miller. 19th for Mark Poynton. And rounding out our top 20 here tonight is Stephen Banks.
So Scott McCune's in 21st with Jeff Thomas in 22nd. Gary Buckland in 23rd and Jamie McKnight in 24th. David Nash is in 25th on the grid with Michael Whiting 26th. And Jonathan Gallen and Stacey Boyd, another 2 drivers on our Zoom wall there, at 27th and 28th after qualifying. Stewie Hall in 29th and Stephen Varga in 30th.
And to round out our field tonight, we've got Brad Doble in 31st and Wayne Sanderson in 32nd. Christian Smart and Chad Lewis in 33rd and 34th. And then Darren Goosey and Darren Crosby, the 2 Darrens off the back row there in 35th and 36th. We will have Bruce Tannock and Greg Sharp start from pit lane after exceeding their penalty points limit there. And that will mean they have served their pit lane start and continue to race for the championship. And that rounds out our field here tonight at Interlagos.
So here is what I'm thinking about with 200 kilometers ahead of us. It's how quickly does this racetrack dry up? It's still officially 50% wet. I'm seeing everyone lining up on the grid on wet tyres. It's that starting fuel. Normally, we see the fuel drive the strategy. Today, the tyres are going to drive the strategy. Can you get to that when you get to that first stop, which will be relatively soon, will the track be dry enough then to go to dry tyres? If it's not, do you gamble and still put dry tyres on then, knowing that the track will then cross over and dry up somewhere in the middle stint? That short starting fuel on a drying track means we're all going to get to that first stop and be sort of iffy if we stay with wets or we go to slicks. But I think Logan Barnett's the only driver I can see starting on slicks. He's gone to the grid on slicks in 5th.
That is a brave move with it. We saw the amount of spraying qualifying there, still out on track. Look, there could be, realistically, as we said earlier, he's not in the championship fight. He's a bit down the order, so this is a Hail Mary, and it could work really well for him, or it might end up being the end of the race. But here we go as the engines
we're about to find out.
We're about to find out.
Showing on those slick tyres, and he's going to struggle to get away from the standing start. They're going to monster him down towards turn 1. Logsdale, Ross, Burridge, Stone Street, they're all eating Logan Barnett for breakfast as Wayne Walker has superb wet weather pace, a great wet weather start, and he leads us through the centre S for the first time, stringing out the front of the field. But there's contact with Stone Street going around in turn 2. A car park there as McLean gets boxed in. 3 or 4 drivers involved, but he spun off the racing line. Stone Street go to the very back of the grid after a top 10 qualifying.
We've got more spinners here as well, just up the track.
Oh, carnage on the Retroposter.
Oh, no. Safety cars out as we've got carnage now coming down into turn 4. This is not what we'd hoped for. There's a lot of damaged car in this melee. That's going to take a little bit to unpack.
Well, it starts with Scott Mackay, and he's there, not moving. An incredible amount of damage on his car. Something in turn 3 saw him go wide, and then he bounced back onto the racetrack in the mid-pack. Heaps of them all tangled up. Here's your pit lane starters who are going to sneak through and gain 1 or 2 spots. There's Sharp ahead of Tannick, and here comes the safety car, which was absolutely needed. Track was almost blocked for a moment there. Many cars coming together. Who benefits from this? Probably not Wayne Walker. Would have liked this race to have stayed green, but does it play into the hands of Logan Barnett?
Yeah, I'm just looking back at the
compulsory pit stop window doesn't open because we've gone to safety car before the completion of lap 1. CPS window will not start until the end of this safety car.
Very good point there, David. Very good point to make that clear, because you'd think with where it's at the moment, people will dive in, but they are unable to at the moment for that compulsory pit stop. Just looking back I'm just looking personally back here, there's definitely some contact between Hunt and Mackay, and you're very right. Mackay gets bounced away and into the middle of the track, and that's where all the carnage happens. So
the weird thing's happening. Christian Smart has not moved from the grid on the race start. And Logan Barnett, even at safety car speed, has been struggling to get around, and he pits. So I think he's made a mistake starting on slicks. Logan Barnett's in the pit lane for wets, presumably to put the wet tyres on, but this will not count. My understanding is this will not count to his 2 compulsory pit stops, and then he overshoots his pit box. David Nash, Stephen Varga are in there. I guess they can add fuel, but just not count to their compulsory pit stops, and that could be smart. That could really extend their first stint here to whenever the tyre crossover is. Barnett is swapping from slicks to wets.
Well, you'd be able to run, you'd be able to pretty much just about top the tank off. We talked about last week how these cars have a massive tank in them, but with that capacity at a fairly high level, you'd be able to almost fill a full tank on these things and just, as you suggested, David, run the wets as long as you can. It could be a good play here, albeit you still will need to tick off those 2 compulsory pit stops by our understanding.
I mean, you're just putting yourself on a 3-stop strategy, but you've got a very early safety car, so you take advantage of it. Bruce Tannick also started on slick tyres from the pit lane, and he's switched to wets as well. So it was far too wet of a racetrack to begin on the slick tyres. I got to imagine that's a mistake rather than a deliberate strategy. They were all just out there in qualifying in the warm-up. assessing the conditions and it was clearly wet, then it wasn't going to dry off that quick with no cars on it.
It's a good point there, David, is when you load your iRacing setup into the car, if you've changed the wet, so if you've changed to wet in practice but haven't actually saved the setup, it'll default back to dry tyres. So there is a chance that that's what's happened with these drivers out there on those dry tyres, and we've thought it's a bold move, but it might just be a bit of a mistake relying on iRacing saved setup.
So we're going to get to some replays of lap 1. Or what we got of lap 1, 3 to 4 corners of lap 1. Begin in sort of 7th, 8th position. There's Logan Barnett on the slick tyres around the outside of Troy Stone Street, and I reckon Barnett's got absolutely no grip on slicks, and he's done Troy Stone Street. But then it's Scott Mackay at about now that you gotta look at. We'll get to that in a second. But there's Barnett losing spots off the start alongside Troy Stone Street. Gets the curb, making absolutely no turning, unfortunately. And Barnett. And then here's Scott Mackay. So he goes through. And what gets him? Oh, he comes across. And he's backwards onto the racetrack.
That is a massive incident. Massive incident. 4 drivers involved initially there, but many more came through and became a part of that. But that initial contact between Hunt and Mackay is what set that one off. And that's a lot of guys there who will not continue in this race. Here's Hunt. We're on board with Hunt here now. So we'll leave it to race control to deliberate on that one there, but certainly looks like that contact, Mackay's been he's come across the nose in one way or another and right into the wall, but that angled wall has shot him straight back out into the track and caused to not put it lightly, an all-out monumental.
And he ended up going backwards onto the racetrack. It's bizarre.
Nothing you can do as Mackay in that situation either. Oh,
right. So that's McCune, Burridge, the lot works. Ash. There's one of the shadow cars as well. See, Michael Whiting's ended up backwards. Yeah, and that's also triggered a lot of these safety car stoppers, is repairs. So Nash, Varga, McCune, Stephen Banks, Chad Lewis, some others have been through the lane there. Everyone is on wet tyres now, as we're not far away from restarting. When we restart the safety car window, the 2 compulsory pit stop window will open. It's not just... Yeah, it's going to be one more lap, isn't it? It's still reading 50% wet track. Sneaking through all of the carnage, Mark Poynton from 19th on the grid is 9th after 4 corners. John Gallen 27th to 15th. So whenever you see carnage like that and so many cars get taken out, there's always 1 or 2 that are fortunate enough to sneak through. There's 10 guys who think they can sneak through and end up, being part of the problem. But there's always 1 or 2 that do actually sneak through. So Greg Sharp, Darren Crosby, some of this, it's crazy. But Mark Poynton, 19th to 9th, not bad.
And just as you mentioned, Mr. Sharp, he has now come into the pit lane. So that was going to be my next point of call, was that we mentioned the pitters who, while they can't get their compulsory pit stop out of the way, we're still going to come in, get some fuel on board. Let's push that first stint out and go for that 3-stop strategy. We have got around 6 or 7 cars that have gone for that strategy. Greg Sharp and Chad Lewis are now in by the looks of it as well, taking advantage. So they're just trying to top that tank up, keep it as full as possible. So they see some value in doing that, as Greg Sharp looks to have kind of snuck out here as pit exit has opened under safety car.
Super lucky with the timing there, and yeah, he's jumped the queue. Well, the queue was stationary, he was rolling, pit exit opened, and he had that momentum, and all those cars leaving pit lane are still on wet tyres.
I think the track is still marked as lightly wet as well, so definitely still not nowhere near dry enough for dry tyres at the moment either, as the safety car is in this lap, and we'll get hopefully more than 4 corners of racing in.
So safety car will pull away from the field now. They're looking at this weather. The track is lightly wet, but I think the track is moderately wet. And the other source of data, JRT, says 50%, which is a fair bit. Not a whole lot of try line. Wayne Walker's just holding the 80 k's an hour at the moment, but in these wet conditions, it's actually tough for them to do 80 k's an hour with Mission Sal. So it almost looked like he was accelerating and picking up, but no, he was just trying to hold the 80. Safety car is in the pit lane. Wayne Walker can go when he sees fit. He had a very handy lead, evaporated, if you'll excuse the pun, I guess, by that lap 1 safety car. If this had gone long and stayed green in the wet conditions, Wayne Walker, the pole sitter, seems to have an incredible amount of speed and confidence in these conditions. He's starting us again to begin lap 5, this time from a safety car restart. We'll look to stay green on a wet Interlagos.
Great jump by Walker there as well, just giving him enough space to comfortably get through these first couple of turns without any grief here, as we watch everyone snake down the S there, and no incidents so far, cross your fingers. But Walker's off to a great start. Ross is all over the back of ladder at the moment, keeping him honest as we come down now to get further than what we did on the first lap of this race. Now lap 5 of a 47 lap 200 kilometre encounter here, but Walker is looking strong. He's all over this car, all over this track in the wet conditions. He'll probably be hoping that it stays wet longer. Ladder loose, Ross still all over him, but we're making it further. No incidents so far, knock on wood, and we're off racing.
So this is that battle of second and third, different lines in play. Jeff Thomas gets a bit of a serve heading up the hill. Jordan Ross gets down the inside of Ken Latta, finds a good place to outbrake him, move up into second. Sometimes you don't realise that there's a bit of grip on part of the tarmac until you're trying to get around someone and you're forced to use a bit of the racetrack that's not your normal racing line. For Jordan Ross, he seems to have found plenty of grip there as he moved past Latta. Wayne Walker is going to lead us as we complete our first proper full green flag lap.
And Walker's off to a great lead here. 1.4 seconds according to JRT. So Jordan Ross, as always, has a bit of pace here, but Walker's managed to stretch a bit of a gap here after that classy move on Ken Latta. So we're line astern. We're on lap 6. Wayne Walker's just at the fastest lap of the race, but I'm sure that'll change as time goes on and the track dries up. So really now everyone's just going to look to settle into a rhythm. We're still needing to get to that first compulsory pit stop, so there's still 2 to go. Just to remind everyone, 2 compulsory pit stops to go. Anyone who pitted under that safety car did not serve one of those. And we're all going to be playing the guessing game of when is the track dry enough.
I wonder if it benefits Wayne Walker if this track stays wet enough that everyone needs to stay on wet tyres at their first stop. If it dries up quickly and we're looking at changing to slicks at that first stop, it doesn't advantage Wayne Walker quite as much. The gap is coming down just fractionally on this lap. So after qualifying third, Jordan Ross has found where the grip is at, found perhaps a little bit more confidence to close a tenth or two on race leader Jordan Ross. Elsewhere through the field, many great battle packs in these conditions. I note that Logan Barnett is looking very confident now. He's got the correct tyres fitted.
Yeah, look, I mean, we saw he had pace in qualifying, qualifying fifth, so he's right back in the pack there, and we're looking to work his way through at the moment as he's making contact. Sorry, I've just watched him personally there. He's making contact to make his way through. Not too much, but he's definitely got pace to burn, and is trying to work his way back through this pack after what we could probably agree, looking at all that spray, was a wrong decision to jump onto the dry tyre, but certainly looking racy off the back of that great result last week and a good qualifying here. We'll have to keep an eye on him as he works his way through the field. But yeah, this field is super tight, even with a wet restart there, as Jordan Ross just smashes in the fastest lap of the race so far and continues to eke in Wayne Walker. We're still on board with Barnett, who's looking left and right to try and make a move here in the turn one. He's going to keep it on the outside. And everyone's going to keep it safe. Yes, they are. No move to be done there, but he's looking. He wants to get through. I'm sure he's eager to make that progress and get as close to the top 10 as possible, as he is now.
Him and Troy Stone Street, both starting 5th and 7th. Now they're back here in the 20-somethings. And both looking to move forward. So hopefully leave just a little bit more space between himself and Stone Street moving forward, but they're two drivers that we might have expected to be carving through the field a little bit at the moment, because they're down 14 and 17 positions from where they started. Darren Crosby gets a drive-through penalty for what I think was contact with Jeff Thomas. That was on the restart lap. There was just a little bit of chaos there. We're spreading the field just a little bit, and the drivers are sort of finding their way to race and how much respect you got to give, so that you don't hit a slightly slippery patch and then go straight into the door of someone else. You got to have that understanding of where the grip is, what kind of grip your opponent has got. And so this, oh yeah, okay.
So we're looking at Justin McLean at the moment, which we're trying to figure out how Crosby got this penalty here, but this is McLean who's committed this in there. So we're trying to find what has happened with Darren Crosby and why he's received that penalty, but clearly we've seen McLean there having an incident of himself. But as we go back to live images now, looking at McLean coming into turn one and battling his heart out and getting a tap from behind.
It's challenging out there. Around the outside of turn three, is that where the grip is, just a little off the racing line. So they'll head side by side down Ressa Aposta to turn four. Clean down the inside. Looks like you brake well on that inside line, but you get mid-corner speed around the outside. McLean will just stay ahead for the moment. Jordan Ross's pace on that last lap dropped a little bit as Wayne Walker set a new fastest lap of the race. I think someone's going to break the fastest lap of the race every lap until this racetrack is completely dry.
Couldn't agree more there, David. I think every lap the track will get drier and it will become faster and faster. And in fact, we're down now to 33% wet track according to JRT. So already just in a few race laps, this track is drying up massively.
Yeah, so pole was a 145.1. Walker's just done a 44.9. McLean looks to gain another position. That slightly inside braking line seems to have a whole lot of grip, but he will pick up a drive-through penalty for what we saw earlier. So clearly a bit of pace, but it's tough conditions out there. Ken Latta gets a new fastest lap of the race, so that is just going to keep on changing and tumbling on a drying racetrack. McLean's going to get that out of the way ASAP. Who else? The big movers. Mark Poynton's got himself another one since the restart. John Gallen is up 11, and it's this sort of 5th to 15th that could be very, very interesting today.
Absolutely. Look, and we talked about it before the race. The qualifying was pretty shaken up. You know, we're looking at Darren Lobb in 10th at the moment, who's been almost a permanent feature in the top 5 all season, so he's back there. Travis Hunt's there. Taliancic is in that 5th to 15th, excuse me, part of the race. So these are guys we expect to be more in that top 10 to top 5 area, and this wet weather has certainly thrown a spanner in the works for them. So I think we're going to see a lot of passing, a lot of drives through the field. But the question is going to be who can transition best from on a wet tyre, from a wet track to a dry track. And we're seeing it happen right now. And that'll, again, question who's got the best handle in their car, the best setup, who's set up for wet versus dry. We'll never know up here, but we can certainly comment on it and try and watch it. But Taliancic is looking strong here. He's up 5 and he's right on the back of Travis Hunt, trying to make that +6 and again stretch his legs and show that pace that he's given us glimpses of this season.
Drivers who took fuel under the safety car might be able to extend a little bit further, get to the crossover point to go to slicks when that crossover happens. It inevitably will somewhere in this 200 kilometers, but is it at the end of the first stint or is it further in? Don't have a great idea of the dry pace to try to guesstimate a crossover. Normally it's about 10 to 12 seconds slower than a dry lap. A completely dry racetrack lap is somewhere where the dry to wet crossover is. And this is a different kind of crossover as you try to take alternate lines through the Center S and through Curva de Sol. Chris Miller and David Kirby. Miller ahead at the moment. Kirby's looking one way, looking the other. Got Jamie McKnight and John Gallen just behind. Miller with a bit of damage on the bumper, it must be noted.
Yeah, just pushed in a little bit here, which will surely be felt in these wet conditions and with these tighter, slower corners through the middle of the circuit. So right now he's got David Kirby behind him who can't find a way past, but he's certainly almost attached by a magnet at the rear there, and I'm sure copping the spray from the back of that car, nearly rear-ending him, trying to find a way around as Kirby looks to the inside. Now, nothing going there. Oh, Miller's doing a great job to defend this, but that damage, you'll surely be feeling that at the moment.
Mid 146s for these guys as the race leaders are doing mid 144s. So the field spread in wet conditions, as in qualifying, quite significant in the race. Just little errors cost more time in the wet. Miller has a bit of a snap, trying to get traction. David Kirby will be all over him, but ask Mark Webber, when it's wet, you've got to be a little bit careful with those left-handers heading up the hill.
I'm sure Mark Webber wouldn't want to talk about that one. I'm sure the battery isn't good. Oh, Kirby's gone down the inside here. He had it all on opposite lock, and he's gotten it done on Miller. That was a great move into turn 1 there. And we've just seen this dry line starting to appear now, albeit we're seeing spray. The track is starting to dry out on the racing line. Important to note, off the racing line, it's still quite wet, but we're just seeing that transition period happen now. So Kirby, full credit, managed to make that one work well, but now the question is, where does the transition happen? And we're not quite at critical lap yet, and everyone still has to fit in 2 compulsory pit stops.
Visually, it looks like it's drying up, but the lap time is still within 1 second of what pole was on a properly wet track. So visually you're seeing it, but I don't think it's reflected in the lap times just yet. Only a gear shifts in these conditions. Oh, a bit across the arms over for David Kirby in some of the tight corners like Bico de Pato where he just was. So we have had a few drivers that have stopped after the safety car came in. I think Varga was one of them. We can't really count the drive-through penalty of Justin McLean.
So Varga is the first guy out there to have completed his first compulsory pit stop at the moment. So he's come in after that safety car and gone, okay, one pit stop down. Now he only has one to go, and he is the leader. There's not too many that have done it just yet. We're still waiting on a lot of the field to come in, but certainly already seeing, as we always talk about, the varied strategies of these guys and figuring out different ways to go racing.
Heading up the hill just inside of the top 10. Dan Hall ahead of Luke Allman, ahead of Mark Poynton, who's proven himself very capable in these conditions so far. So this closes up. Still driving a wet line through there, almost everyone. But at the top of the hill, Pico de Pato is very close to the dry racing line. Long left-hand downhill. Close to driving on the regular dry racing line there. Lap times dropping significantly for race leader Wayne Walker. So he's reset the fastest lap a couple of times and will do so again, a 1:43.8. So every lap it's coming down about half a second towards the crossover. Might be at about 1:40, 1:41.
And Ken Latta has just come in and set the fastest lap by by half a second, excuse me, there. So he's found some pace now in these drying conditions too. So all the drivers are starting to figure out what their cars can do now on these wet tyres before it gets too dry and they need to pit. But we're seeing this tit for tat through the top three at the moment, figuring out who is the fastest driver. But Wayne Walker, we talked about it, probably he wants to keep it wet because he's still out there in front. But we're looking at Hall versus Allman at the moment, with both on the Zoom wall tonight. Looking back from Hall at Allman in 6th and 7th, both up a few positions from their starting position, which is great. Managing these conditions with a few cars behind them as well. So still all to play for out there, and the wet to dry always makes it interesting and difficult to manage.
Strategically, I think wet to dry is more difficult than dry to wet, because starts raining, you wait one lap, you go put wet tyres on. But here it's slowly, and the first person to go to dry tyres will probably look like a little bit of an idiot, but then a lap later someone else will do it, and suddenly they're 2-3 seconds a lap quicker, and you go, well, why did everyone else wait so long to go to that tyre if it was quicker? So really tough to judge it from a performance perspective when the right time to go from a wet tyre to a dry tyre is. The vice versa can be quite a little bit easier. Jordan Ross is going to be one of the first drivers to stop. So what does he do here? Pitting from second place, Ken Latta was beginning to catch him. Luke Allman and Dan Hall are going to be side by side down the front straight, and we'll see who's in best place to break. Allman around the outside. In these conditions, there could be a bit of grip there, and he sure thinks he's going to find some, but Hall will just hold on. And Jordan Ross is going to slick tyres. Talyancic, Kirby, Miller, some others are coming in. They must think that it's time to go to slick tyres. Talyancic has gone to slicks. Jordan Ross leaving pit lane. It's a wet pit lane. He's on slick tyres. How tough is this going to be for Jordan Ross?
Well, David, you were just talking about the first person that comes in to get dry tyres might look a bit silly, but it could be a gamble that pays off, and maybe that's what we're seeing here. Look, we're still seeing lightly wet and a 33% wet track on our JRT timing here, but we know Jordan Ross has got pace. We know he is basically at one with his Ford Mustang. Could this be a masterstroke to try and get to the lead and make something work here? Now, keeping in mind he's come out in traffic who are on wet tyres, but we'll have to wait and see here and see how Walker and Latta go. I'd be really curious. There's still a lot of spray out there too, but he felt confident to jump on there. And we've just heard then Greg Sharp has done the fastest lap. Greg Sharp is right now down towards the rear end of the field in 34th at the moment, and has just done the fastest lap on a set of slick tyres. That being a 42.7. As now Walker is in the pits, and I imagine Latta, there he is, Latta will follow as well. So the slick tyres are working out there beautifully.
I mean, you see Jordan Ross make a stop for slicks, and it feels like a pretty safe bet then to do the same thing. So almost everyone coming in and everyone going from wet tyres to slick tyres, Walker to slick tyres, Latter to slick tyres. It's got to complete the change before it updates the data. Certainly, Jordan Ross seems to have found pace with that change, and Greg Sharp likewise. So it is time right now. Walker's done what he normally does, which is load in quite a lot of fuel at the first of the two stops. So Jordan Ross is going to get him now. Ross's stop, 20 seconds. Walker's stop, 26 and a half.
Yeah, so a good differential there, but we're going to have to watch on pit exit here, because Ross would have made up a bit of time on that exit lap that he had, that pit exit lap. So we'll have to wait for things to even out just a bit here to get some timing. It looks like there's about 4 to 5 seconds between Ross and Walker, so the fuel gap at the moment, if you pit next lap, Walker would jump Ross, but there's a lot to play out here before we get to that point. I think for the time being, we might have just seen another Jordan Ross masterstroke here. That was perfect timing for the dry tyres, and it seems to be working an absolute treat for him.
So there's the gap between them, and then also the gap in their pit stop time. Walker will be hoping for a lot of cars in this train to be pitting out of his way shortly, because it's actually the little bit of track position he's lost that's costing him a couple of tenths at the moment. As you're going to see, another wave of drivers in. Ross is on the curb. He looks down the inside. Now he's on the grass. Now he's leaping across the curbs, and he's lost big time because of that. Jordan Ross, with so much pace on the dry line, he was forced onto the wet line, and it's cost him big time. Wayne Walker is right behind him. Walker's got to run. There's more contact there.
Oh, wow. That was... okay. The race has changed, and Ross has just got... Oh, no. This has been a disastrous few seconds for Ross here, as now Walker has gone through, so all that talk we just had is gone. It has gone out the window. I think that's Bruce Tannick there that might have been hit. And Ladder's in the wall.
Ladder's got a meatball and massive damage. So there's been a coming together. You've got these drivers that have pitted, gone to slick tyres. They've come out amongst a bunch of drivers on, wet tyres. Another one's in. David Kirby's in. This guy's on slicks really struggling, finding some wet patches out there. And it's a narrow, workable racing line. Kirby, also massive damage. Surely this is going to be another safety car. Christopher Burridge is coming to a halt. What's going on? We will go to a second safety car with 3 damaged cars out there in different places of the racetrack. You're looking at Ladder and Kirby together, but Burridge is also stopped in one of the outfields elsewhere. That's the run on from turn 1 just there.
Yeah, that was... look, I'm not going to lie to you. That was not something we were expecting. Seeing Ross hit Tannick and then Ladder in the wall. These dry tyres really challenging, of course, in these semi-wet conditions here. While we are seeing a dry line, off the dry line.
Under safety car.
And McKnight's just gone, okay, right. So people are struggling. So that crossover, maybe it wasn't as perfect as we were thinking, because, or as I was thinking, because I said it, like there's still a lot of water out there. And now run the safety car, with some people pitting in on the safety car, will probably benefit from this. And sort of some penalties may be hanging over some people's heads as well after some exchanges there.
Yeah, so Darren Lobb, a bunch of other drivers came in. Jordan Ross is in for the second time. Let's try to dissect everything that's just happened that's led to this second safety car of the race for RaceKraft V8 Vets at Interlagos. There's also a bit of a race heading out of the lane. Scott McCune caught behind the safety car. So Dean Logsdale's pitted, stayed on wets. Mark Poynton's pitted and stayed on wets. Almost everyone else has gone to the dry tyres, like Michael Stewart and Darren Lobb and David Nash. Wayne Walker ends up second and on the slick tyres. Luke Allman's got an incredible amount of damage.
Yeah, that's interesting staying on the wets, because we're seeing this track, albeit it hasn't shifted from that 33% and lightly wet status, but it's just going to continue getting drier, and this safety car the cars will all be circulating, so it will continue to dry up. So this is very interesting. Scott McCune out front here, albeit his last pit stop lap was lap 2, so we're a little bit out of order there, but anyone still on wet tyres will be interesting. Here we go. We're going to go replay now to Bruce Tannock, who has had an incident with Kenneth Ladder there. So that's how Ladder ended up in the wall.
So at this point, Ladder's on the slick tyres. He's coming through the field. Tannock's on wets and hasn't stopped yet. And there's a coming together between the two of them. Once you've locked it up and you're on the wet line and you're in the runoff, there's no stopping it. It's Ladder on ice there, unfortunately, once the contact's made. And you see, I think he's got the brakes on and he's sliding down the hill. Is how slippery the outfield is. Now here's Barnett. Kirby also ends up in the same runoff. He gets a lock-up, and there's just no stopping it once you've had a lock-up. He's all tyres locked up. He slides and skates into the wall, blows the motor from a simple lock-up. And then Burridge has a lock-up, and he makes some contact there. And that knocks one of the tyres off for Burridge. And that paint... Look at him. He's locked up, skidding at 5 k's an hour like he's on ice. And he can't get out of the runoff. He's got drive. He just can't get drive. He just can't get drive.
That paint... That paint on. Here's Logan Barnett getting wide straight into the wall as well. So, so close there as well. My goodness, that was for Greg Sharp by the looks of it, who's been playing the strategy game well after a pit lane start. We're going to go on board here with Sharp. Oh, hold on to your hats, everyone. Jeez Louise, that was tight as you want it. Wow, well done from Sharp there in wet conditions, stopping that. But for Logan Barnett, we're seeing some of our top contenders who qualified well being caught out by some incidents here. I don't know about you, David. I wasn't expecting this much excitement from Interlagos tonight, but it's sure delivering.
And then McKnight. So the safety car's been called at this point. And Jamie McKnight, he's just on the curb and there's nothing. So you get on that curb or the painted runoff and, you might as well have Vaseline on the running track because there's no stopping it, there's no turning it, there's no controlling it. You lock up all the tyres and you're going nowhere. So Darren Lobb's on the pit exit here. I reckon he gets one of the white lines. What can you do? What do you do? Well, that.
Well managed by everyone in that scenario. Not just Lob there, but everyone not having an incident. We're just looking at Brad Doble here, who had a black flag for what looked pretty clear to speeding in the pit lane. Obviously, wet conditions, very hard to get the car slowed down, and you do want to speed in as fast as you can. Now we're looking at Luke Allman, who has joined the club there off at turn 3 into the angled wall. We saw Mackay in earlier on and has now got to meet ball himself. Again, the curbs and the paint, David, the curbs and the paint, they're doing it for everyone. And this is under safety car conditions. Like, you don't have to race to the back. We'll reset it. They're still having incidents.
We know that, the most dangerous thing in changeable conditions is when you find a wet painted line or something. We know how crazy slippery that can be. But these painted runoff bits here are too slippery. Like, you're seeing guys, like, all 4 tyres locked up at 4 k's an hour, sliding like it's, curling at the Winter Olympics or something. You saw... drivers who've come to a complete stop lock up all 4 tyres, hold the brakes, and begin sliding down the hill on that painted concrete. It's insane. And I mean, it should be slippery. It shouldn't be that slippery. Let's digest where we're at then. Scott McCune stopped under the first safety car, which did not count as a compulsory pit stop, but did fuel him up. He stayed out with this safety car, and he's at the front of the pack on wet tyres. Wayne Walker, it's come up pretty rosy for him, must be said. He's in second here on slick tyres. Behind him, Logsdale is still on wet tyres, but did stop under this safety car. You've got 3 cars in the top 3 on completely different fuel and tyre strategies to each other. Dan Hall and Travis Hunt, dare I say, are the effective podium at the moment. They're on slick tyres, they've cleared one of their compulsory pit stops, and they're in the top 5.
Yeah, see, I'm really interested to see how this slick versus wet tyre debate goes at the end of this safety car period. So we've got these, you just talked Walker, Hall and Hunt all on dry tyres, and Logsdale's taking the gamble on wet tyres, assuming that the track is going to be wet enough to still have those tyres carry him through this stint. But the reality is you've got probably 15 to 20 laps ahead of you before you have to pit again, and by then the track will certainly be dry. So you're probably right there, David. The dry tyre is the correct gamble, in that the track will continue to dry out pretty quickly after this. But the question for the guys who are still on their wet tyres, in the top 10 we've got Logsdale, Poynton and Varga. Varga in the top 10 as well, I might add as well, after his early first compulsory pit stop. How long could those wet tyres last before they've got to pit again and then drag this thing to the finish?
Yeah, so the wet tyres are very safe, but they're not as quick in the ideal conditions. What's tough is if you've got to race wheel to wheel on those slick tyres, knowing that the curbs, white lines, runoff, everything is still so slippery. The fastest lap of the race belongs to drivers on dry tyres. That's the tyre to have if you can hot lap, if you can time trial. But it's so knife edge right now. This safety car will have maybe just given us a chance to just work it out a little bit. Safety car is pulling away. For your information, the safety car is on wet tyres, if that helps.
The safe tyre, right? We don't want to see these safety car incidents.
Very, very interesting. The safety car's got ABS and traction control, so that's all to its advantage. The safety car is in the pit lane. Scott McCune is the race leader, still owes us 2 pit stops in this race. He's going to restart on the wet tyres. He can't lead him to pit entry, can he? He's not. He's going to wait a while. Now he's going to go. Wayne Walker, I think, will do well to exercise some patience here. What's going to be challenging is Dan Hall and Travis Hunt. Can they get around Dean Logsdale using their slick tyres to pass someone on the wet tyres? That's the real challenge. We're underway.
Exercising patience, David. That is that is the key term of the night here. Now, with this mixed strategy between a lot of drivers, is not doing anything rash, getting the moves done where you can.
Here goes Hall.
That'll be really important. And here's Walker now. He's going to go down the inside of McCune and grab the race leaders. In the background, we've got Hall and Logsdale now going at it. Oh, Walker's out wide there. He's way wide.
He's on the paint.
On those dry tyres, and he's got no grip. He spun it. Oh, Walker. No. He's going to go right to the back here as McCune will take that lead. Hall and Hunt are second and third now. That is disaster for another one of our championship contenders.
Painted runoff will claim another one. There was absolutely no grip. What he needed to do was just drive straight out of it to the unpainted part. He was in the danger zone. Dan Hall successfully stuck his pass though. So did Travis Hunt. So they both move ahead of Dean Logsdale. Dan Hall is the effective leader of this race. He's on the fastest tyre. He's cleared one of his compulsory pit stops, and he's able to pass without throwing the car off the track, which is so critical. So he's going to go for a move at some point, surely. Got Travis Hunt breathing down the back of his neck as Logsdale and Poynton become a bit of a cork in the bottle. On their tyres, no, now Dan Hall spins it out of the race lead. Travis Hunt is going to be your net race leader as everyone who tries to pass Scott McCune catches a little case of second-hand Teflon.
What is going on here, guys? This has been wild. I speculated before the race that we might go to dry conditions early, and David and Dan, you both told me, no, we're going to stay wet even with the rain gone, and you guys were right. This has been a wild race, and we've got another... Is that Jordan Ross? Ross is around at turn 1 and in the wall as well. So our championship leader is in the wall. Not sure of the circumstances there. But now we have, as you said, Travis Hunt, effective lead here. And Darren Lobb, who started way back, Ross is nearly in the wall. He's in the Armco now. Wow, this is a race that's all gone off.
Ross has gone backwards into the wall earlier on, and then it snapped on him there. What isn't mixing is we've got another barbecue. Oh no, 2 cars super damaged in that runoff at turn 1. Once you get on that painted concrete there, you are not stopping the car before the wall. Justin McLean as well, Brad Doble, Bruce Tannock, 3 cars smoking. Oh, crazy. Gonna go safety car for the 3rd time. What isn't mixing is cars on dry tyres trying to race cars on wet tyres. They're making pace in such different areas that it's catching out the guys on dry tyres. Travis Hunt leads the race, so he's gotten past Scott McCune just before the safety car was called. I mean, a lot of people be interested in maybe making their 2nd pit stop right now, because if you can get it home from here, the earlier you can make your final stop in these conditions, I reckon the better. So what does Travis Hunt do? Is he going to go to the safety car train? He's going to go to pit lane. Travis Hunt, got to be careful pitting in on those tyres. Got to be slow. He's got a black flag. Travis Hunt speeding on pit lane on the pit entry from the race lead. Scott Mackay as well. Stephen Banks as well. Oh no. No one wants to lead this race.
I have to be honest.
Miller's going to become race leader. Michael Stewart leads at the moment on track.
I'm having to hold in so many noises here because you can't script this. This is wild right now, where you're gunning for a guy. You're like, hey, yeah, go Travis Hunt, and he's got a black flag. They're spinning you. Who is going to win this one? It's as you said, David. No one wants to lead this race in these tricky conditions. Wow. This is wild. Stewart is out the front. Hasn't taken that 2nd pit stop just yet. At the moment, he's got 1 compulsory pit stop under his belt, but not 2. I don't think there's anyone at the moment who's near him that has that 2nd one. So this will create a real joint strategy. As here we are looking on board with Travis Hunt. Look at that speedo there. Speed limit is 80. He didn't turn the speed limiter on.
It's happened before. We've seen this. Guys are locked up and sideways getting into the lane, and they're too preoccupied with that to press the button for their limiter. He gets down to 80. He's locked up. He's sideways. Then he goes, oh, just dodged a bullet there. Gets on the throttle. Speeds past 80 because he forgot to engage the limiter in and amongst all of the rigmarole of, downshifting, locking it up, cadence braking to try to get down to that 80 k's an hour. My, oh my. And I think in the David Haynes strategy world, Michael Whiting leads this race.
Wow. I think that's all you can say, right? Wow.
Stewart up front, 1 stop, dry tyres. Varga, 2 stops, but only 1 of them was the CPS. Wet tyres. And then Miller, 1 stop.
Yeah, so I think the key thing here is, I think you're very right, David, on your on the David Haynes Booker strategy. I think you're correct. Whiting is our effective race leader with Taliancic and Banks behind him. The question is going to be, can they
for pit lane back there? Stephen Banks trying to clear an iRacing black flag that he had. What that means is that he's actually going to have to wait for the whole train to go by. Having a look here, so looking like in these chaotic conditions, a lot of drivers are racking up incident points super quickly, and Stephen Banks may have crossed the 17 incidents to a drive-through at that point, and he'll drop to the tail of the field underneath this safety car. Joining him in pit lane there is Scott Mackay. Scott Mackay's 4th trip to pit lane this race in 23 laps. Brad Doble and Bruce Tanek are doing the same. We haven't seen how they ended up in the wall past turn 1, but I imagine it will look pretty similar to how some of the other drivers ended up down there, where if you're just a little out of sorts, touching the grass or the curb or the wet part of the racetrack in the braking zone, you don't stop it, you end up in the runoff, and the runoff does not slow you down one iota.
As here we've got a replay of Darren Crosby now. And Greg Sharp, and Sharp has spun Crosby if they've both gone off the circuit as they're coming onto the back straight there, excuse me, the front straight. And now we're looking at Jordan Ross here coming down to the turn 1. Contact from McLean as McLean barrels off down the circuit there and takes himself out there. Jordan Ross is just an innocent victim, and Tanek does much the same thing. And David, you were theorising this, that they just went in too hot on those dry tyres. Now we're looking from this far chase cam on Tanek. There was contact, and that's why he's flown off. So that's not by himself. That was with Brad Doble, so they both ended up in the wall after contact together. And here's Jeff Thomas as well. So, So Jeff got hit by Brad, and it's amazing he's been able to get out of this. Jordan Ross not so lucky after that contact.
So he just gets clipped by McLean on the way in, and then after that is the contact between Doble and Tanek, and both of them end up in the runoff there. Hello, there we go. Here's Scott Mackay. Well, there's a bit in front of him. So, an incredible amount happening everywhere all at once in these conditions. We are looking at getting racing again in one lap. And is there damage and further problems from Mackay? We're picking him up, looking to catch the safety car train, which is going to take a lot of effort because the safety car train is back here in turn 3 on the Retta Aposta. So you've got information left-hand side of your screen there that may be useful. What tyre they're on, when they last stopped. Yes. So Varga's still on the wet tyres. He is one of just 2 cars on wet tyres. Jeff Thomas remains on wets, and so does the safety car for whatever it matters. If the safety car changes to slicks, we'll know we're really on a dry racetrack. So Michael Stewart still needs to make another stop. Stephen Vargas still needs to make another stop. Chris Miller needs to make another stop. Michael Whiting potentially doesn't. He might not have enough fuel though, so he might need to grab a 3rd stop in this race. Taliancic in 5th, stopped most recently of the lot of them. He could be good to get to the end here. But Mark Poynton and Darren Lobb definitely are 7th and 8th in the train, stopped underneath this safety car on slick tyres, could potentially go all the way to the end. We've just crossed half distance on lap 24, 23 to go when they cross the start-finish line. Michael Stewart will lead them to the restart.
I would ask you for a prediction of how this is going to end up, but I think that'd be cool. Yeah, it'd be cruel because I can't see the future on this one. Michael Stewart coming around on dry tyres with Stephen Varga behind him in second on the wet tyres. We're waiting for the call now for safety car in pit lane where Michael will take control of the field. As we've just heard that now, so Michael Stewart in control of the field, and he's gone. He's like, I'm out of here. I'm not waiting. Everyone's got a different strategy for these safety car restarts, and we've just seen a new one there. So he's gone, and look at the gap he's already got on Varga. The gaps are massive. Yep.
Now that everyone's on slick tyres, we're going to see a little bit less because they're all looking for speed and grip in the same places. Pointing deep into turn one, sideways, just manages to straighten it out. And the spread of the field means that they're all able to check up. But who do we have in that dreaded spot? The corner of death in the runoff of turn one. It's David Nash with a lot of damage. Look at that. He's dropping backwards down the hill with the throttle in low. Oh, massively into the wall.
Oh no, another one of our championship contenders. Tonight has not been the night. Excuse me, I can't say the car in the back. Luke Allman as well has joined the fun in the background there. So, Scott Mackay. Oh my goodness. What is going on? The penultimate round of the RaceKraft V8 Vets Championship, and it is going off.
Okay, here is Logan Barnett trying to make some moves. Gets back onto the dry part of the racetrack. Obviously where you want to be. You don't want to be on any of the curbs. You don't want to be in any of the runoffs. You don't want to be on any of the painted lines. Barnett is up into 15th. He stopped under that last safety car. He's made 4 stops in this race. One of them because he started on the wrong tyres, but suddenly he's back in it. He's on a strategy that could take him all the way to the end. And with chaos in front of him, maybe it'll clear a path and he can head back towards a podium position. Here's Stephen Varga. Wet tyres, trying to hold off Michael Whiting on slicks. This is the danger when cars with wet tyres try to battle cars with slick tyres. Miller on slicks now ahead of Varga there. So Varga drops 1 spot. Whiting on a reasonable enough strategy. We saw Darren Lobb, how horrible the restart went for him, and he was one of the drivers I thought could win this race based on the strategy that they were on. More cars off the road through turn 2. Oh, that's Stacey Boyd really struggling. Get your tyres off the curbs because there's no grip.
Yep, that's a fair response there, David. I thought, there's more contact. Jesus, oh no, that's Dan Hall being hit. Excuse me, I can't. Is Christopher Burridge, is it involved in that? Oh, there's more contact. Chris Burridge is off, and luckily no more cars were involved in that. Troy Stone Street just got black flagged in the middle of that too. David, you said it earlier in the race. No one wants to win this thing. No one wants to be up in this thing. There's just incidents after incidents. As now we're looking at Varga, who on those wet tyres is being mauled now. Whiting, so Miller got past him. Whiting is now all over the back of him. We're starting to see a bit of a train forming as Varga just tries to make it through for a good finish here.
Yeah, my Varga on those wet tyres really compromised. There's a few drivers that are going to try to straight line, and now there's more rolling resistance. There's so much more rolling resistance to the wet tyres. You do eventually, past the crossover point to slick tyres, get mugged in a straight line, and that's what's going to happen to him here. They got more traction off the final corner. They got more speed in a straight line. Michael Whiting, Mike Taliancic moves ahead of Stephen Varga. Chad Lewis, Scott McCune, and Mark Poynton is the queue, and those are some cars on the prime strategy as well. McCune and Poynton, though McCune needs 1 more stop. Because he did not make his first stop under the compulsory pit stop window. Massive tank slapper with a tiny touch on the curb. Oh no! 3 noses into 1. And McCune gets spun around. He was on such a great strategy too.
That was one of the lazier incidents we've seen tonight as Now we've got Gary Buckland coming through. I think that was unrelated into the wall, potentially. Oh no! Well done to all drivers involved to get around that. But yeah, Buckland has come in there and is now in the wall. McCune, as you mentioned, on one of the better strategies tonight, but now with that 3-into-1 incident, is now well and truly out of it. Race Control Channel is blowing up with people requesting reviews. Jordan Ross has been black flagged. Safety car again. This is our third safety car now with 20 laps to go. I might need a coffee for this one, David, to keep me up and about there. It's hard to keep track. Excuse me, safety car number 4 for the night, not number 3.
My oh my. So, not great news for some. Could be good for Michael Whiting. Are you pitting in Michael Whiting? You need one more stop? You're not going to take one more stop. Chris Miller will from second. So, Michael Whiting maybe doesn't. Michael Stewart didn't. That's what surprised me. Miller, Varga, Crosby, a few others are going to pit. You're definitely, clearly getting home from here without any more stops, and so maybe that's what you need. This reshuffles the order somewhat. It moves Mark Poynton, Dean Logsdale, a few of those guys further up the order that can get to the end from here.
Yep, it's all to play for.
Okay. The top 4 behind the safety car are Mike, and Mark.
I think we need to clip this as a momentous occasion in V8 Vets to have three mics in the top 3. We talk about playing the Scott game. I think you talked about that with Scott when he commentates, and this is pretty cool to have a Mike, and Mike in the top 3 there, and then a 4th M under safety car. We've got our Tonight on Zoom wall here with everyone looking.
Taking the warm-up jacket off.
He has. Everyone's looking very serious here. This race, we weren't expecting it. Certainly, I wasn't expecting it to throw up as many curveballs as what it has, and I'm sure none of these drivers had expected it too. But they all look pretty bloody locked in to try and get to the end of this thing, which we still have about 20 laps to go. That's the craziest thing, is we are still nowhere near the end of this thing.
Travis Hunt probably saying something about letting the race lead slip out of his fingers at one point there, maybe. Anything is still possible now, though. So you've got last pit stop lap on the timing column. I'd like to see total number of pit stops up there, because it doesn't vary widely. It varies widely, with Michael Stewart on 1, Michael Whiting on 2, and Mike Taliancic in 3rd. 4 stops. Chad Lewis in 5th. 5 stops. How often does that kind of thing happen? It has been insane like that. But what you will then note is that I reckon Taliancic and Lewis, 2 drivers that are definitely getting to the end on their fuel. Mark Poynton potentially as well. Michael Stewart absolutely needs another compulsory pit stop. Michael Whiting might need another one if he doesn't have the fuel range, but the amount of time spent behind the safety car, and behind the safety car right now, is extending that.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, strategy has played into this one beautifully, and the reality is, like, we're expecting 2 pit stops tonight. Maybe the 4-stop or 5-stop strategy works perfectly. So we've seen pace from Taliancic, and now he's showing a bit of strategic bravado. Plus 14, taking advantage of these safety cars, and well and truly in the box seat for a win here, where Jordan Ross has had his teammate, I might add, at Synergy Sim Racing, has had an unfortunate evening out there with that penalty, but also just some incidents there too. So Again, I wouldn't want to call who would win this. I'm not a betting man, but I wouldn't bet on this one because it is all to play for. And realistically, our usual players, we're looking at Kenneth Latta now with the waiver round. You know, we've got Ken Latta, Darren Lobb, Wayne Walker, Jordan Ross, the usual guys we talk about, have had all sorts of incidents. Now it's all about... Latta will now be back on the lead lap with that one. But now we've got at the front of the field the likes of, you know, Whiting, Boynton and Lewis, and Latta's gone off onto the painted stuff. Just stay on the grey stuff, please. But it's all to play for with...
Stone Street's done the same, has he? Oh, right. Stone Street has just ended up there when the safety car came out. Yeah, don't touch the curbs. Do not touch the green concrete. Insane how slippery that concrete is. That doesn't look like it should be slippery. Believe you me, I bet it is slippery, but it shouldn't be that. It shouldn't be slide down the hill from a standing start with all four tyres locked up slippery.
Yeah, not with the amount of horsepower these big supercars have as well. You know, nearly 600 horsepower. We're just looking at Jeff Thomas here, who is still on a wet tyre by the looks of it, even though we're nearly at a dry line at the very least. We've seen some incidents that have come from coming off the dry line and braking too late and whatnot, but those are on dry tyres. Jeff is he's playing the wet tyre strategy here. Are we going to see a Stephen Bradbury situation, maybe, David?
Well, it feels like it almost guarantees that he needs to make another stop, even though it looks like he's done 2 CPS. You just imagine that if we have even more than 3 green flag racing laps, everyone on slick tyres will absolutely murder him and he'll be stone cold motherless. So the only way this is a good strategy is if we literally don't have 2 consecutive green flag laps between now and the end, which surely David Kirby is going to stop for his 4th. So that's interesting. There's going to be so many drivers treading the absolute limit of incident point drive-through penalties as well, which is why one of the cars is there, I think. There's a few cars lining up at pit exit, waiting for the train as pit exit will open.
So we saw Darren Lobb there, whose car is unfortunately looking out of action. We have got, outside of that, Kirby, Stone Street and Tannick. Excuse me, not Tannick. And here we go. They've been released from pit lane now. So that was, Buckland, Kirby and Stone Street have now been released now that the field has gone by. But the safety car is in this lap. So we're going to get back racing here with what will be 17 laps to go once the safety car is in. And, I mean, you probably need someone with a PhD in race strategy to unpack this one for us, David, because, as you said, in theory, it's a 2 compulsory pit stop race, and you should be able to make it to the end of that. But the wet, the safety cars, the now drying conditions have led it to be, for some people, a 4 to 5 stop race, and maybe more to come. So this has been excellent, but I don't know how to begin to unpack who's going to try and take the win on this one.
I think there are people with PhDs in race strategy. I think Ruth Boscombe has one. I think the 2 keys is be on the right tyre at the right time, make your compulsory pit stops as early as possible, make your final pit stop as early as possible. And the drivers that I think have done that are Mark Poynton, Dean Logsdale, John Gallen, Logan Barnett, Wayne Sanderson, Darren Goosey, etc. We're about to get green flag racing again. We pointed out Jeff Thomas in 15, the only driver on wet tyres. Everyone else has made the move to slicks on a continually drying, but perhaps not drying quick enough Interlagos. Goodness knows that the runoff isn't drying quick enough. Michael Stewart went early last time. What does he do this time? He'll be waiting on word that the safety car has cleared off, which is right now. And he waits at 80 k's an hour. He waits a bit longer than last time. They're getting impatient. Mike Taliancic is getting super impatient behind Michael Whiting, behind Michael Stewart. Now Stewart is going to send us racing again. 1 or 2 cars out of line in the train back there. Is the track dry enough for everyone to keep it on the road at turn 1? Because if you leave the confines of the racetrack, you are not stopping or slowing your car before you find the wall.
Yep, if that's one learning you're going to have from this race, it's don't go off the track. Whether it's grass or the painted surface, your car isn't going to stop. Now, Michael Stewart didn't quite get the jump he had last time. Whiting is all over him at the moment and trying to make something of it. So we'll see what comes from that. A bit of gap back to Taliancic at the moment. So all to play for, though, in the midfield. It's just... Who's got the pace here? We're going to watch where they're trying to sound the dry line. Maybe throw a move down the inside here. It's brave. It's in the wet on dry tyres. Not going to work out, but no one's spinning. That's a good result if you ask me.
Travis Hunt behind Stacey Boyd. Justin McLean picks up a penalty, and that's way off the road for Chad Lewis, who drops a couple of spots. Now Boyd and Hunt will try to go around the outside of him onto that wet line, close to the curb. Super, super dangerous. I wonder if Lewis just didn't end up on the curb at the top of the hill after Ferradura that we've seen a few drivers almost get tangled in. We saw Ken Latter almost get tangled in it trying to get around, being waved around the safety car. Looks like a relatively clean lap here. Barnett's off the road and back onto it. No, now he's on the curb. Get off the curb. Oh, Barnett dropping spots, and with that off-track adventure, he's crossed the 17 incidents. I told you there'd be a couple drivers super, super close to that. There's a few drivers heading to pit lane to serve their penalties. See if McLean's gotten himself another one. Jordan Ross, too much drama for him. Lewis off the road in front of him, rejoins, and there's a touch and go moment that sees Banks spin around. Oh. He gets collected, he gets spun back around, and I think we keep going.
Yeah, Banks is pulling off the side of the circuit to hit the wall there, so he might be in for maybe another safety car. Someone's off with the paint in the background there, so watching Chad Lewis again off, but we might be in trouble here. Stephen Banks is dawdling along. Darren Crosby has been in the wars tonight. Both are injured cars trying to make it back to the pits here, but this weather has thrown a spanner in the works, and I mean that in the most literal term possible. We're going to go to a replay now with Darren Crosby to see what's happened with him. So he's come through with all the drama. He's on the paint now, which we've seen has just not gone well. Lost control, aquaplaned, come back across the track, and safety car called now. Darren Crosby luckily didn't take anybody else with that one, but we now have another safety car. So, oh my goodness. Are we going to see more pit stops? I imagine so, but yeah. What is going to happen in this one? I asked that not to answer, but rather because I'm wondering myself.
Surely drivers like Michael Stewart have got to bite the bullet at some point. There's a few drivers that are going to come in, like Jamie McKnight. There's not even a question about has Michael Stewart done 2 compulsory pit stops, because he's only done 1 pit stop full stop. There's a few other drivers that we think their first stop didn't count to the CPS, but their second stop will have. Well, Stewart's only made the 1 stop.
Yeah, this is interesting. So Michael Stewart still hasn't come into pit, and I don't really know why. And David, I know you're expressing the same thing. It's just at this point, yeah, critical lap number, you've hit it. It's dry enough to whack some dry tyres on the thing and try stay in that dry line. I understand track position's everything, but he still does need to do that second compulsory pit stop. So with these safety cars, if you can come in at the start and serve it, you put yourself in a pretty good position. But right now, he's still running out the front here. And time is running out to get this thing in, where drivers behind him have served it and are in a position to try and take this lead away from him. It's a confusing strategy at the moment.
So, I think my question to you is, having stopped on lap 19 and gone through, I think, 2 safety cars since then, perhaps even 3, is Mike Taliancic going to the end? Is Mike Taliancic the net race leader in these conditions?
While I'm not a betting man, I would put a small bet on that. Michael Taliancic, his last pit stop was lap 19. The critical lap was 18 to 21, remember? We've had that many safety cars. He's on a dry tyre. I would venture a small prediction that he could get there. And he, out of everyone, has been the most consistent this race. Plus 14, and his strategy's put him there. With a bit of clutch and coast, he might be in the perfect position to have the fuel to get him to the end. Again, I'm not making any promises because this one has been an absolute wild race. And look, with the talk of plus 14 for Taliancic, we can't go without mentioning the most positions gained at the moment. Darren Goosey with plus 26. That is an excellent effort, pending a bit of strategy there. And excuse me for not knowing exactly where the pit stop's right for Darren. But so we're just hearing Darren being plus 26, so he's in 9th position at the moment. Is actually well and truly within the window to make it. Has made his 2 stops at plus 26 positions. So very well done by him. We've got Michael Whiting as well, up 24. Wayne Sanderson, up 24. Stuart Hall, up 23. And Jonathan Gallant, up 20. So there are some guys here who have played the strategy perfectly. And the reality is, Darren Goosey is one of them. Mike Taliancic is another one of them. And we're going to have, depending on when a safety car is in this lap, so we are going to have 13 laps to go here. Provided there's no more safety cars, there are a couple of guys who still need to pit and get that compulsory pit stop out of the way, and I reckon, David, you're right, Mike Taliancic might be the man to take the lead here.
Would you like a stat?
I love a stat, David, give it to us.
We're on lap 34. The safety car is on lap 15.
Safety cars are working hard tonight.
It's been working about 50% of the laps to this point, just under. Race Control have tidied up most of their penalties and the other things, and also, I think, made quite clear to a lot of the drivers what they'd like to see between now and the end of the race, which is not bringing out the safety car for lap 16. Michael Stewart is going to be restarting the field for the 3rd time here at Interlagos. First time he went early, second time he waited a little bit longer. Third time, they don't know what he's going to do. He's going to keep them on their toes. Going early again. So gives him a lot of space to Michael Whiting and Mike Taliancic in 3rd. Spreads out the field of cars, heading towards turn 1 once again.
Keeping it fresh, keeping it different there as he comes into turn 1, and we're watching some moves being thrown in the background. The idea of the race being over soon has not been forgotten, albeit keeping it safe is not on the menu, as Travis Hunt now up into 9th place past Darren Goosey, who we were just singing the praises of. Now Travis Hunt up to 9th and continuing his charge through the field on what was a wet qualifying, and now slowly drying race as most people look to be settling into a line astern pattern. Most, I say.
Yeah, his teammate Jeff Thomas still the only driver on wet tyres. David Kirby looks to move ahead of Greg Sharp. Scott McCune's also going to try to muscle through turns 4 and 5, then heading uphill towards Ferragira. You've got a bit of side-by-side here, like McLean around the outside of Christian Smart there. Keep it tidy, guys, and most of all, stay off that curb right there. That one around the outside, absolutely gnarly. McLean's still alongside with Whiting, but giving each other a fair bit of space. Looks like McLean wins in the back and forth through that sequence of corners. Michael Whiting all over Michael Stewart for the race lead. Super tight as they head up the hill, and Taliancic, I think he can sit back and kick his feet up potentially, but it doesn't look like that's what he wants to do. How close he is to Michael Whiting.
Yeah, we know this. We've seen it not just in this season of V8 Vets, but over the years with Michael Taliancic. He's a born and bred racer here on iRacing with the supercars over multiple generations. He's not going to sit back and wait. He wants to take this thing for himself, and look at that. 1:37.3, our fastest lap of the race, and keep in mind about 20 laps ago we were seeing laps in the 140s. So Taliancic is showing his speed as now we're on board with Michael Whiting, looking at the back of Michael Stewart, who still needs to make that last compulsory stop. So this will be a very interesting one here. Stewart seems to be content out the front. I'm not sure what the strategy is, but he's got enough pace to keep everyone behind him at the moment, as we're continuing to see a larger drawing line and the drivers being a bit braver and using more and more curb throughout the circuit as well.
Bit of drama on turn 3. Well, Wayne Walker's got a lot of damage. David Nash was around with a bit of contact with Jordan Ross, but Walker has clearly found the wall. A bit more action up Ferragira. Wayne Walker sneaks down the inside. Christian Smart there. Just in behind Dan Hall is where Wayne Walker ends up.
So we're looking at a replay now with David Nash, trying to understand what's happened here. There's been a spin. There's that Jordan Ross involved in that again, and Ross, Walker has been tagged as part of that.
Ross went wide at 2, got the curb, and then understeered, I reckon, into Nash a bit. Here's Walker down at turn 4.
So a bit of contact there. Walker's done well to not get out of the painted stuff, which we've seen basically be nightmare fuel for the drivers tonight. But nonetheless, has lost position after position as we go back to live and see more contact again. Oh,
Barnett's
my
out
goodness.
There. Barnett's in the wall at turn 1. Once you're on that green concrete, you are heading straight towards the wall. You can't actually even drive out of there. It's too slippery. You wouldn't be able to stay upright on a bicycle. But once you get the grass, that's just really slippery, not stupid, insane slippery. Stewart's out in the really, really dangerous stuff. Michael Whiting takes the race lead. Mike Taliancic follows through. Stewart's still in a world of hurt as Mark Poynton's going to try to go round the outside of him. There's just a little bit of a touch there as Poynton squeezes his way into a podium position. Whiting and Taliancic, 2 drivers that might be able to make it to the end, 2 drivers that have done their 2 compulsory pit stops. This is the battle for the lead.
This is the battle for the lead, and Tally is looking very, very racy here. And might I add, Tally has 5-lap younger tyres, and that means he is pitted later than what Whiting has. So as far as a fuel saving point of view, Whiting's got to save a little bit more than what Tally does, and we just said it earlier, Taliancic is racy. He's going for it. He's looking for the inside down to the turn 1 now for the race lead. With 11 laps to go, he won't get it there, but you can sense it. He wants it. We mentioned earlier he's shown flashes of brilliance this season, and now he sees the opportunity. He wants this race win against the Fishy Motorsports driver of Michael Whiting. We've got 10 laps to go here, and trust me, it's going to be exciting as Taliancic is in the grass. I promised excitement, and there it is. He's nearly thrown it off, and now we've got Scott McCune off at turn 1 with Greg Sharp black flagged. Oh my goodness, and McCune might be stuck there. We've got another driver off in the background. That's Gary Buckland on the paint again. just when you think it's settling down, it doesn't, David.
Scott McCune's going nowhere with the damage that he's got, or is he? Gee, it's hard to know. There is a lot of damage. Logan Barnett crosses the incident point limit. A few other drivers will. So easy to leave the track. So easy to get 4x contact against another car. You can rack them up. Darren Crosby has the same. Greg Sharp has a penalty as well. It's Christopher Burridge. Jeff Thomas restarted in 13th on the wet tyres, and he's down to 19th at the moment. So here he is. Wet tyres. Guys, look, they're just driving through him. The amount of extra speed that they've got. You've got to be more careful than that, Dan Hall. But McCune's made it to the next corner. And it's clearly not worked.
Yeah, I wonder if he's trying to make it to a point where the marshals could get him so that it's not a safety car. So he's just trying to limp that damaged car there. And we've just heard McCune has got the right to tow, so there will be no safety car. He is allowed to tow, so he's done the right thing there and gotten to a marshal's point where it can be taken off the circuit, so to speak. But now we've seen Michael Stewart in, so we had been
finally
questioning exactly at his stop. So we're going to go to a replay here. This is looking like 3 wide in here. We're not going to look at that though. We're going to look at Scott McCune, who gets served up by McKnight into the wall, and that spells the end of that. McKnight, is that Sharp again around in the middle of turn 2? This is just messy.
Oh, McKnight served up 2 of them, unfortunately.
2 for 1 deal, going until the end of the night.
So here's his cross to the inside. You're on the wet part of the racetrack, and he's locked up here, and he slides on here, and he gets 1, he gets 2. He manages to save himself pretty well, to be honest. Burridge has just been into the wall right now. Wayne Walker picks up that black flag.
And hearing some chatter on the race control, as well as about that contact. I mean, he is looking pretty banged up.
Burridge.
Yeah. Again, this is the stepping up. Here we go.
Oh, reversed onto the racetrack as Wayne Walker gets incident points from that gives him a drive-through penalty just then. So that's crazy how this all happens. No, I know you're getting it too. Michael Whiting leading this one. He's 26 laps into his stint with 8 to go, but we know that easily 10 of those laps would have been behind safety car. So I would have put a big question mark on Michael Whiting's fuel that I would put on Mike Taliancic or Mark Poynton, who are 2nd and 3rd behind him.
Absolutely, and I mean, I know there's still a few laps to go here, but Taliancic is definitely in the prime position and Whiting is not, and we're seeing still a lot of pressure from Taliancic, who is actually doing a very good job here in keeping Whiting honest. But this is, you talked about your Mike, and Mark. Well, we've still got Mike, and Mark in the top 3 here, and all are poised to go to the end. It's just a matter of who needs to save and who needs to push. So Taliancic, it's probably a matter of bravery here. Where do you go for a move? Do you take the chance on a slightly wet surface and maybe have what happens with McKnight? As here he goes down to the turn 1. Is he going to go for it? No, he's going to fall back in there. Smart. Manage the car. We've still got 7 laps to go here, so there's still time, and look at how close he is to the backup Whiting. Can anything happen, or are we going to see probably one of the biggest upsets of the season with this jumbled field and this crazy weather?
Taliancic was thinking about an opportunity there, stays behind Michael Whiting. Mark Poynton's closed in on the both of them. You've got a few other drivers making stops. So David Kirby, Logan Barnett and Scott McCune clearly with problems. Taliancic has the fastest lap of the race. They set that earlier. The track is still finding speed, but Obviously, the curbs and the runoffs are the last things to dry, and they are creating a lot of problems. Michael Stewart's got a bit of clean air, having made his second stop, so he sets the new fastest lap of the race. I wonder if he'd made that second stop a little bit earlier, if he'd be in a slightly nicer spot. This is our top three, with a bit of time on Dean Logsdale in fourth, who's got some pressure with Stewie Hall, John Gallen and Travis Hunt behind him. There they go.
Yeah, so it's spread out a bit. This track is still decently wet enough to create some issues for people on the dry, and everyone's on the dry tyre, excuse me. So we're still seeing everyone's trying to find their lines, and it means that the regular race line is still going to be a bit slick. So we're on board with Dean Logsdale here, looking back now at Stuart Hall in fifth, and I'll just shout at Stuart Hall, up 24 positions and still hunting for another one there, as Greg Sharp is down the pits as well. But this race has been nuts, and Logsdale, can I just point out, where everyone is up and down a heap of positions, Logsdale hasn't moved from his qualifying position. He is fourth. He qualified for... Oh, the commentator's curse! No! He's
No. Massive damage to Dean Logsdale. He's got the curb wrong. He's gone into the wall. He's almost stuck on the curb. He's going to try to get going. They're all driving around him. He's in such a dangerous spot. Darren Crosby, I reckon he's gone wide at 3, caught the outside wall. Massive damage for Darren Crosby.
Yeah, look, I think we need to send a gift basket to Dean Logsdale as we have another safety car. Travis Hunt has gone around as well with a safety car with now what will be 5 laps to go next time round. This is wild. We have 3 cars stranded. Travis Hunt, Darren Crosby and Dean Logsdale are all stranded with now what will be 5 laps to go next time round. The race that keeps on giving to the viewers but keeps on taking from the races are... I don't know what to say, David. This is nuts. Travis Hunt has got going again, but we know there are a couple other drivers stranded after incidents.
Be headed for a green-white checker situation. Travis Hunt had just made a move as well earlier on. Here's Crosby. So you get wide, you get the curb. You are not stopping, slowing, turning, or doing anything other than heading straight for that wall. And that's the undoing of Darren Crosby. Too much speed through turn 3. Travis Hunt was trying to continue that battle onwards here. So he was battling with John Gallen. He had gotten ahead of John Gallen at turn 1. And then as he goes around the spun Logsdale, he ends up in the water himself.
That's an unfortunate one. He's just trying to leave racing room around him to John Gallen as we're going to go on board now. You see the spin happen in front of you. He's David, you caught it perfectly. He's out in the water there to not have an incident, and he's ended up in the wall trying to avoid hitting another car. Like, very well played by Travis Hunt to avoid that incident with Logsdale on the inside, but unfortunately has ended up with him in the wall, on the inside wall. So just that dry to wet. We've got that dry line, but the track itself off the racing line is still wet, as I think we've watched Travis Hunt come in there and it looked like a fairly gnarly pit entrance, and now we're back under safety car. Lap 43 of 47 here with Michael Whiting, Michael Talianchich and Mark Poynton 1, 2 and 3 in this nutty Thursday night outing in Interlagos.
Safety car number 6. Listening to race control, how long this safety car might take. Because I got to imagine we are going to restart, but is it 3 laps to go, 2 laps to go, 1 lap shootout type situation? We won't be finishing this race under safety car by the seams of things at the moment. I reckon this is all saving Michael Whiting enough fuel to make it to the end, though. So he's in a prime position. It's since Brock Oh no. What's happened for Travis Hunt on his out lap? That is hide the pain Harold stuff as Darren Lobb shoots the gap. Both of them facing backwards. Gosh. I was going somewhere with a point before that. Thought has escaped me.
Something about safety car restarts and trying to finish this thing under the green as we go to the replay now of Travis Hunt. He's come out of the pits, he's looking all right, and he's drilled the back of Aaron Crosby coming out of the pits, and now you've got a two-way chicane. We're on board. He's got a bit of grass there out of the pits. He's right over to the left and just gassed it up too much and bam, right into the back of Taron Crosby. I mean, you can't predict a worse night. Hunt has been through it. There are a lot of drivers. Crosby's been through it as well. But we're aiming to try and get a restart here. But you're very right, David, to talk about the strategy of it all. Whiting is in a great position. A safety car will be in this lap, so they are going to let through the lapped cars here and let the field loose with 3 laps to go. But I think you're right. Whiting, Talianchi's pointing. They've done their compulsory pit stops, and now it's on for young and old who can take this thing with a 3-lap sprint to the end.
After ups to go, looks like everyone who's made their compulsory pit stops is going to make it to the end. So Jeff Thomas is going to stay on those wet tyres. Michael Whiting, 30 laps since his stop, but so many of them have been under this safety car. Safety car gets extended. Some more waiver rounds happening, so we won't be restarting this lap. They wanted to, but they've looked at the waiver round situation, picked up a couple more cars that need it, like Troy Stone Street, like Logan Barnett, I think. Oh my. So is there anyone that hasn't made 2 CPS? No. Stewart might have been one of the last, and then he picked up the fastest lap of the race, but as you thought, he's run out of laps to make any of that back. He's down in 22nd at the moment.
Yeah, this is just going to give even more tension to the guys in the top 5 to try and make something of it. Look, these guys all of them, Whiting, Talianchi's, Point and Hall and Gallen. This is a great result for them wherever they end up with when the safety car ends up coming in. But it's a matter of who can get that podium, and I am keen to interview whoever ends up on the podium tonight, because I'm sure there's going to be some colourful stories, no matter who it is, about their night and what they've had to endure to get there.
So your race leader started from 26th on the grid. Second started from 16th on the grid. Third started from 19th on the grid. Fourth started from 29th on the grid. And fifth started from 27th on the grid. That's your top 5. None of them from inside of the top 10. None of them from inside of the top 15. Most of them from outside of the top 20. But the strategy, the keeping it on the road, and the number of safety cars has elevated Michael Whiting, Mike Talianich and Mark Poynton to the place they find themselves right now. Remember, Poynton was one of the first drivers to make the first CPS, and then went to wet tyres again, and then went to dry. So I'm noticing actually a lot of the drivers who've profited, the drivers who stayed on wets a little bit past the crossover point, and then at their second stop went to the slicks. So changing to slicks at the first opportunity, a lot of the drivers that benefited from that and then later run into issues. Looking for a safety car restart this lap, if we can get it, which will give us 2 laps to the checkered flag at Interlagos.
Yep, and look, while we're waiting for that safety car restart, just a bit of throw a bit of appreciation Kenneth Ladder and Jordan Ross's way. Like we saw the number of incidents they've been involved in, and up to race control to determine how those go. But Ladder is back up to 10th, and Jordan Ross is back up to 11th. And I know we have drop rounds in this series, but they have had a good recovery drive from where they are. And another thing to note is the top 9. Everyone is in the double figures in, as you were talking to, in the double figures in positions made. You know, they've played the strategy perfectly. As we're just here in the safety car, is getting ready to pull away from the field and leave Michael Whiting with the control. But it shows you that throw a bit of wet weather in there as Brazil at Interlagos is thrown up here, and throw the old strategy book out the window, because it doesn't work when Mother Nature decides to show a force.
So Jordan Ross has only not won once. So with 2 drop rounds, he drops a race win, and it gets picked up by a race win. Safety car's in the pit lane. Michael Whiting leads us. 2 laps to go at Interlagos. Track is very dry, but the curbs and the runoff are not. We are at speed. Taliancic could still win this. He's got a great start for the race lead. Whiting leads them into 1. Taliancic breathing down his neck. Single file towards the center S, descending down the hill. Taliancic, does he play this one safe, or does he smell an opportunity with 2 to go?
I think you smell an opportunity here. 2 to go. The track's drying out. You've got to go for it. Taliancic has shown, as I said earlier, some flashes of that brilliance and that pace that he's got, and you've got to go for it. He's right on the back of Whiting here. There's no spray anymore. Those dry tyres are starting to come into their own. As I say, that there's a little bit of spray, but nonetheless...
Whiting touches the curb. Taliancic is going to be alongside him, heading up towards Ferragura, looking to cross over underneath. Perhaps looking for the inside of the next corner. Don't want to run out wide here, because you touch that curb, you are going to be in a whole world of hurt. So Taliancic just keeping the pressure on, which can pay amazing benefits in these conditions, because you just need a tiny mistake from your rival here, which is so easy to do.
Absolutely. We talked about it earlier, way earlier in the stream. You get the wrong run off one of these corners and it's all over and done with. So right now, Taliancic, we're coming around to start the last lap of this race. Michael Whiting is up 25 positions on where he started. He's staring at the barrel of a race win here. The only person standing between him and that race win is Michael Taliancic, right behind him here. Testing, where can you put the car? Where can I defend and make it happen? Taliancic ranging up on him. He's going to go for the move here. Down to the turn 1 for the lead on the last lap. Taliancic is there. He's gone wide. Whiting will take it back. Now he's battling for 3rd place, and Mark Poynton is thinking, am I on here?
He certainly was thinking it. Stewie Hall's just behind him and John Gallen, but Michael Whiting, he's sustained that pressure, and it's Mike Taliancic that's cracked, outbraked himself, and given Michael Whiting a 1.5 second lead on this final lap. I see Stephen Varga trying to pick up some spots back there alongside Chris Miller. It's side by side. Someone's in that dreaded green concrete once again, and managed to mainly get away with it. Surprise to me. Darren Goosey's got problems heading up towards Ferragura, so he's going to get swallowed up on this final lap, but we will stay green. They will race to the checkered flag. Michael Whiting leading this one. Taliancic and Poynton looking like the podium at the moment, but you still can't afford to put one tyre wrong with wet runoff.
Absolutely not. And we're just looking back now at Stephen Kennedy, who has lost a few spots here, but and now back at Justin McLean as well. Look, you're so right. Michael Whiting played that really well. As he comes around now through the last couple of turns, he wasn't on my bingo card. He wasn't the guy who I thought would cross the line as the winner, but strategy, pace, cleanliness in these situations has led to him being the race winner of the penultimate round of V8 Vets. Michael Whiting, well done. Michael Taliancic 2nd and Mike Poynton 3rd, all up a ridiculous amount of positions in this crazy race tonight. what a finish. What a race. It has been not what we would have predicted. They were all battling here. We're still seeing the ends of battles to get to the end of this race here. But, David, could you have predicted such an exciting and unpredictable race coming out of Interlagos this evening?
I would have predicted an unpredictable first half of the race and then it to dry up, but for it to remain as treacherous as it was with no more rain, with the sun in the sky, no, I probably wouldn't have predicted 6 safety cars. I probably wouldn't have predicted 26th on the grid to the race win for Michael Whiting. And wow, there's a massive points haul for a whole group of drivers that would rarely find themselves in the top 5 or even in the top 10. The whole top 8 of the finishing order have all gained at least 10 positions in this race. Stephen Varga from 30th to 8th. There's Wayne Sanderson from 32nd to 6th. It's a real victory lap for Michael Whiting right now. And Talyancic had an opportunity there, but Whiting held under the pressure. It was Talyancic that outbraked himself, locked it up, slid out of the way, and Michael Whiting can be so pleased with himself with that one.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, we've seen some pace from Michael Whiting in the last few rounds, and look, just for the whole top 3, played that really well. Strategy was on. They all went a fair stint on that last set of tyres to get it to the end there, even with the safety cars. So it very well played, and a completely new top 3 for us in V8 Vets this season too. So very well done, and nice to see heading into the final round that we've got some guys who are willing to try something different, and all with double-figure gains on their race. I think they'll look back on this one and be pretty proud of themselves.
So chaos in the wet in Interlagos. This is how they've crossed the checkered flag. Michael Whiting ahead of Mike Talyancic and Mark Poynton. Stewie Hall in 4th, and then John Gallen, Wayne Sanderson, Chris Miller, Stephen Varga, Ken Latta, and Jordan Ross in 10th.
And then we've got Daniel Hall in 11th, Darren Goosey 12th, 13th is Stacey Boyd, 14th Jamie McKnight, 15th David Nash, 16th Stephen Kennedy, 17th Chad Lewis, 18th David Kirby, who we did see in trouble there, 19th Justin McLean, and 20th Michael Stewart, who was leading for a while there but ended up pitting too.
And then in 21st, we find Jeff Thomas, 22nd, Christian Smart, Wayne Walker, Christopher Burridge, Dean Logsdale, Troy Stonestreet, Scott Mackay, Travis Hunt, Greg Sharp, and Gary Buckland.
And to round out our field here after 47 laps and a number of safety cars, we've got 31st Luke Allman, 32nd Darren Lobb, 33rd Logan Barnett, 34th Stephen Banks, 35th Scott McCune, 36th Darren Crosby, 37th Bruce Tannick, and 38th Brad Doble.
Few drivers falling short of being classified finishers here, but everyone down to Darren Crosby probably should have been, I would imagine. Yeah. So within 11 laps of the leaders would get you a classified finish and the points, and then also make valid, I think, your bonus points around all of the other stuff. Perhaps like joining the Zoom wall. Not sure there were too many bonus points going around for 0 incidents in today's chaotic race. Far more penalties going out for crossing the 17 incident limit, which I can now see. Oh my goodness. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 drivers with drive-through penalties for incident points today. It was so easy to rack those up with the track limits, with contact, etc., etc. Not our regular podium, so we'll see if they know how to find us in the commentary booth and see if we can chat to some of our drivers post-race. So 3rd place, Mark Poynton, started from 19th on the grid.
Yep.
Let's get to Mark Poynton. Brock Cadday is being abducted by a helicopter, potentially. Mark Poynton will join us. So, a lot of time on a safety car, gained a lot of positions. You finished on the podium. What's the feeling after that?
Yeah, pretty happy with the result. It was a pretty tough race. It was mayhem, but yeah, happy to survive and happy to get on the podium.
Unlikely bedfellows on that podium as well, because you're actually one of the drivers who gained the fewest positions to get onto the podium.
Oh, there you go. Maybe qualifying doesn't normally work out too well for me, but yeah, lots of safety cars, lots of different strategies. But yeah, still happy with what was a pretty tough night for some.
Now, we don't always get completely perfect data about drivers' tyre choices, but mine says that at your first stop, you went for wet tyres again at a time that a lot of other drivers were thinking it was crossover time to slicks. Is that correct?
Yeah, I did. So yeah, I went wet, and then dry for the last one. Just wasn't prepared to take any risk, and also had worked out that if I needed to, I could just make that middle stint a very short stint, and then just quickly switch over to dries and just get rid of one of the compulsory stops anyway. So I figured I didn't have too much to lose, other than the fact that I would have had to have a long run home on slicks. But as it happens with all the safety cars, it wasn't a big issue.
There were a lot of sort of perhaps slightly more predictable races in the first half of this season, and now in the last 2 or 3, what's gotten into everyone in RaceKraft V8 Vets?
Well, today it was the weather, but I don't know. I think we're seeing a few different people start to get grips with the new cars. I'm starting to get more comfortable with them. I think there's a few in the same boat. The more time we spend on them, the more you get familiarised with them, and yeah, I think it's good seeing some different results and some different names up the front.
And what's your number one wet racing top tip?
Stay out of trouble. Sorry, I don't have any other pearls of wisdom. It's pretty. That was my focus today, was to try and stay out of as much trouble as possible. But yeah, wasn't a perfect race by any stretch, but happy with the end result.
Yeah, fantastic, and congratulations. And with one race to go, we'll wish you the best of luck there as well.
No worries. Thank you very much.
Full podium coming by, Brocky. So let's get to Mike Teliancic, who finished second.
No worries. Mike, welcome to the comms box, mate. A second place in these challenging conditions is certainly a prize you're happy to walk away with. Can you just talk us through the result, mate? Because you are a fair number of positions. What was your strategy walking into this one?
I didn't really come up with a strategy. I didn't even think about it until prior to the race. But yeah, I didn't really have the wet track pace that some of the other drivers did, but as the track was drying up, I was just getting faster and faster, and I've done a lot of laps in the dry around this track in the past. But yeah, I'm really lucky to be where I was. I don't know if you guys caught my off. In my first stop, I came out, I was one of the first onto the slick tyres, and I went flying off turn 1 straight into the wall, and had to go straight back in the pits for a fast repair. But yeah, somehow having the fuel to the end got me back up at the next safety car.
I'm not sure if we did catch that, Mike, but look, it worked out beautifully for you, mate. And I'd love to understand, what was your mindset going into that last safety car restart a couple of laps ago with Whiting ahead of you? We did see you made that move. Were you happy with second, or do you just wanted to inch ahead and try get that first position?
Everyone just wants to win, mate. Like, second place is the first loser, isn't it? Yeah, no, I really wanted it, but I'm just glad I didn't take him out or anything like that, because I really balls that up. I'm amazed I still came away with second after the send at the start of the last lap. But yeah, no, I was just trying to do my best to win it. I don't really, I don't know. It was a real struggle on those slick tires and the wet conditions to come off the racing line, and then you go into a wetter track, and then you have to send it harder than the other guy. It's a big challenge, and I just wasn't really up to the task. So good on Michael. But yeah, there was a moment in that race I actually thought there was going to be 3 Michaels for the whole podium, which I thought was kind of funny.
It's funny you mentioned that, Mike. We had thought the same thing, and we're actually talking about it a bit earlier on with Michael Stewart up there with you guys as well. We were joking and saying, imagine a Mike and Mike podium in round 9 of V8 Vets. But look, the last thing I'd ask is, and it's probably a bit of a controversial one, is did you expect the track to stay as wet as what it did, as long as what it did in tonight's race?
I've done a bit of testing during the week, and it seemed like the track doesn't dry very fast, which is, I didn't think it would be like, I don't think it should be like that, but I don't really know. I've never raced in real life in these conditions. So I was well aware that it sort of doesn't dry up that quick. But yeah, no, I did enough practice to sort of know and expect what we had.
Excellent, Mike. Well done, mate. We've seen some really good results from you, and this is just yet another one to add to the old agenda for yourself. Before I let you go, is there anyone you wanted to thank or shout out?
I'll just shout out to everyone that runs the series, or the admin, the race control, who probably have a hell of a lot of work tonight. Yeah, I feel sorry for those guys. It sounds like they're going to be sitting there for hours, and that's they're doing a great job. People might not agree with what they call all the time, but they're putting so much effort in for us, and the series wouldn't be what it is without them. And thanks to you guys for putting on a great broadcast every week, and shout out to guys at Synergy as well, who are always behind me.
Definitely appreciate the kind words there, Michael. Well done again on your second place and plus 15 on where you started, mate. And we look forward to seeing you in the final round of the series next week.
I won't be here next week, unfortunately. I'm working night shifts, so that'll be a bit disappointing. But yeah, best of luck to all the races next week.
That's all right. In next season then, mate. Well done again, and we'll chat to you then.
Cheers, mate. See ya.
And I believe, David, that just leaves one Mr. Michael Whiting to figure out how he managed to snag this win tonight. I'll bring him in.
Race winner Michael Whiting joins us, and it's a very unique win in RaceKraft V8 Vets. 26th on the grid, but in a race with many safety cars and drying conditions, you nailed that strategy, and we're just seeing this replay here. You also nailed it under pressure in that final 2 laps against Teljancic.
Yeah, look, the strategy was kind of forced because I had an incident, like, I think it was to lap 5 or 6. They, just after turn 3, got taken out into the wall, steering 45 degrees to the left. But I thought if I can stay out and get a CPS done, so after 1 lap of green, and then come out and just field it and see how far we can run, and then it sort of, a couple of people chuck slicks on. I thought, right, there's the time, and there was a heap of safety cars, so I managed to save enough fuel and got to the end, and yeah, it was good. It was very unexpected. I wasn't expecting to be up that high, that's for sure.
And then, obviously, there were a couple of drivers in front of you that needed to pit. The road cleared, and restarting 2 laps to go. Teljancic breathing down the back of your neck. That's as high stakes as it gets.
Yeah, look, it's pretty hard to pass once you get off that racing line because it's still quite wet. So if you go on the wet line, you end up blocking a brake or sending it long like Telly did on the last lap. So I knew he was coming because he was pretty close, and then he sent it up the inside, just outbraked himself, unfortunately, which sort of took the pressure off in that last lap, which was good.
And in your ideal world, how many safety cars would we have had?
I was actually talking to the guys on the team before I did race control for the previous gen car at that track, and it was still chaos. I think it's just the track. I don't think it's got much to do with the weather. Like last time we raced there would have been 45, 50 incidents and it was dry. So I think it's just the nature of the track, unfortunately. There's a lot of opportunities to sort of shove the nose in, and sometimes it doesn't really end the way it should.
If you look back, you might also notice that the the runoff here has painted concrete that was genuine hockey rink stuff as well, that I think turned some small incidents into big incidents as no one could slow down and stay out of the wall. You might have experienced a little bit of that, I guess, on lap 6.
Yeah, look, the painted lines, the curbs, the AstroTurf, all that, the painted concrete, it's like a ice skating rink, it really is. You get on it and it just starts wheel spinning and then it's out of control before you know it. So you got to be very, very careful.
I've got some good news for you.
Yes.
You are the Chubby Buns Burgers driver of the day.
Oh, sweet, thank you.
So hang that one on your mantle, and it's an award that only one driver can win each round. But from 26 on the grid to the race win, it goes to you in a superlative performance when some of those drivers who led some of the first stint of the race couldn't hold on, so came to issues or didn't nail the strategy as you, perhaps by design, perhaps fortunately, did. Yeah, it was. They certainly wanted to mix it up this week, and I think they got the desired result. And I hope you desire the result as well. Congratulations, and anyone you'd like to thank? Yeah, obviously all the guys on the team, the guys and girls at West End Motor Group, excuse me, DC Shades, Infinity Designs, Too Easy Finance, and special mention to Index Designs as well, and Battery Warehouse, Airlie Beach. Sweet. Well, best of luck if we're going to see you next week for the season finale, and if not, registration's open for season 24, I believe. We'll be there with bells on. Beautiful. So the race winner, Michael Whiting, joining us there, and driver of the day as well. While others floundered, Whiting salmoned, perhaps.
Potentially he hit the base and made that one work for him, but look, a very well done race there, and now we're heading into what'll be the final round here, and coming up next week, and very good result for Michael Whiting there, and in fact has snuck him in with that Fishy Motorsports car into 10th, so it'll be Jordan Ross on top still, but plenty still to play for, as we just saw with that race has panned out. Even with round 10, drop rounds don't count in the final round of the championship, so you better hope you get a good result, otherwise it could all go wrong. Yeah, clearly Taliancic and Poynton also picking up quite a lot of points today and helping them inside the top 10. Some drivers losing out, some drivers gaining as you look at the rest of the top 20 in points after this one. Like we said, there is one round left for season 23 of RaceKraft V8 Vets Championship. Registration is open for returning and new drivers for season 24. So a league that continues to grow and grow, going from 3 to 4 splits in my time broadcasting it, and a little bit of a waiting list, and maybe a 5th split could even be on the way. The final round is going to be VIR here on SimSpeed TV in 1 week's time. We're really looking forward to that, Brock. Absolutely, and VIR is a fascinating circuit. It'll be fun to see these guys have a crack at it, and I think we're going to be in for an exciting end to the series with this one. I'm excited. I'm sure you guys are, but I look forward to hopefully being a part of it. Once again, it'll be 200 kilometres at VIR for the season finale of RaceKraft V8 Vets Season 23. Here's your info about registration. So season 23 driver and early bird rego ends June 5th. If you want to join V8 Vets, join the Discord to get on the waiting list, where there will be 4 splits for a total of 200 drivers. When you put it like that, gee, this is a big league, RaceKraft V8 Vets, and you can see with the effort that goes into it from Race Control and from others, and some of the great driving that we see, why more and more come back. Today was a real challenge for them. We'll see what the finale at VIR will bring. Jordan Ross, despite today's performance, will still be in the box seat for the championship, but at the final hurdle, he'll have to clear that one with some grace.
So the key sponsors for the RaceKraft Simulations V8 Vets Championship: RaceKraft, Logitech G, Nova Sim Sports, Parramatta Isuzu Ute, Player One Sim Gear, LGC Images, Chubby Buns Burgers, and SimSpeed. They and us will all be back for the season finale in 1 week's time. You'll see it here live on SimSpeed TV.